one day I was just sitting in my studio doing a session, and my phone rang, and the contact said Scrim.
No way.
And I was like, who, because I thought it was one of my clients, because I had so many different rapper clients at the time, and I was like, which one is this? And I answered it, and it was him.
That's dope. What did the conversation look like?
He was like, hey, it's Scrim from the uicideboys.
He said it like that?
He said it like that. I was like, I know who you are. My name's Sambo Bachrack, and you're watching Deathless. Hi, I'm Sambo Bachrack. I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana, and I'm the audio engineer for the uicideboys.
So we were talking like a little bit about how you went to school in Louisiana, and you're 26 years old, is that correct?
Yep, I'm 26.
So kind of like take us through the process of you going to school and then opening up Roadkill Studios in 2016 when you were 22, is that right?
That's right. So when I graduated from LSU in 2016, I was a political communications major, and the election had just happened, and I was sort of just completely turned off by it. I had always been a musician. I'm a drummer. I had always recorded my band in the past, and my mentor died in that year. His name was Rick Nizer. He had a studio in New Orleans. When he passed away, we bought a lot of gear from him and sort of started our own studio. He was just about to like record my band's album, and when he passed, we were all really bummed, but we still wanted to record. So I sort of like filled that role.
Damn, that's crazy. What a drastic change.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, you decided to did you rent a space?
The space was actually my parents' pool house. So we tore out the cabinets. It was like a kitchen in there. We completely gutted the downstairs and made it like a control room. And the upstairs was the tracking room.
Very cool. So how easy was it stepping into the role of, becoming a part of the recording and engineering process?
It's different, especially in the rap and hip hop business. I grew up playing drums in a rock and roll band, and I had always, recorded my band. So I was sort of used to recording groups. But there's not too many groups around, and to pay the bills, you got to get the rappers in there. And we really needed money at the time because my dad had lost his job, and the studio was the only thing that was making money.
Whoa.
So
that's crazy.
So I knew a local DJ I'm gonna shout out DJ Dizzy. He knew a lot of rappers, and he helped me get my start.
Gotcha. So he was basically the main form of recommendations in terms of your audio capabilities.
Yeah, he sort of got the word out there, and I started, a bottom of the barrel, just any upcoming rapper in the area who wanted to come by, I would just give him a shot.
So Dizzy was almost kind of like an A&R in some ways.
He was. He had he knew a lot of rappers. He would host live nights at this local club, and there'd be hip hop nights where, a dozen or so local rappers would come out and perform, and he would put it together. And they were always looking for somewhere to record.
Gotcha. So then you kind of learned as you went, or did you take any master classes, YouTube? How did you figure this stuff out?
So I was sort of experienced with recording local bands when I was in high school. because I was recording before we had the studio. It was just more of like a simpler setup. So I knew how to record. Even when I was in 8th grade in high school, I recorded my first rapper, who was one of my friends on the football team.
In 8th grade?
In 8th grade, I recorded my first rapper. But after that, I really didn't do anything. I only really got serious when I started graduating college.
And just to clarify, is it vocal mixing? Is it producing?
It was mostly just vocal mixing. They would come in with a beat and I would record them on top of the beat. Sometimes they would want me to put guitar on it or something like that.
That's cool. Like, what would you say, like, the level of comfortability that you have to be with these rappers for it to be like a really successful session in terms of them recording in front of you?
It takes a minute to get comfortable. It's a different vibe, you know. It's just you and the rapper at that point. Like, if they come in and they get a feeling that you don't know what you're doing, you know, they're not going to have the best time.
Yeah.
So you kind of got to project this, you know, aura that you're comfortable here, you know, like, I'm going to make you sound really good. Like, we'll make it work.
But yeah, getting back into it. So kind of like develop these skills. And like you said, from like 8th grade, you were, you know, kind of cultivating all these skills, working with like local talent and whatnot. Where did Scrim and Ruby fit into all of this? Was this like really far down the line? Were you still kind of like working on your skills?
So this was pretty far down the line. I didn't meet Scrim until about 2018. He had just gotten back from their international grade A tour, I think it was. Shout out DJ Dizzy again. I happened to go to the club and there Scrim was. I was like, Dizzy, man, you gotta introduce me, dude. You gotta introduce me.
That's cool.
He introduced me. I sort of got the story backwards. He introduced me, and then they went on this international tour.
Oh, I see.
So I met him, and then didn't hear from him for like about a year.
Gotcha.
And he didn't come to the studio. And one day I was just sitting in my studio doing a session, and my phone rang, and the contact said Scrim.
No way.
And I was like, who, you know, because I thought it was one of my clients, because I had so many different rapper clients at the time. And I was like, which one is this? And I answered it, and it was him.
That's dope. What did the conversation look like?
He was like, hey, it's Scrim from the uicideboys.
He said it like that?
He said it like that. I was like, I know who you are.
That's hella funny.
Yeah. He came over and checked out the studio.
Gotcha. Over at Roadkill Studios, right?
Yeah, over at Roadkill.
And did you guys do any like practicing, recording at all, or was it just kind of like a friendly get together?
At first it started off, he just wanted to come by and make beats. He would go and record himself. So it was sort of just a chill spot for him.
So you knew Scrim when you had gotten introduced by Dizzy, but were you an avid listener of their music?
You know, I really wasn't. I was familiar with it just because they were like from New Orleans. You know, my friends would like talk about them, but I wasn't like the biggest fan.
Do you feel now after all this time, I mean, I'm sure after, you know, we're going to get into this album like eventually, but how much has that appreciation level grown after seeing him work?
Immensely. I appreciate, you know, the music so much more now just because I've seen this process and everything that went into it.
Do you feel that like a lot of people would appreciate some stuff that they wouldn't really care too much about if they got to see how much work got put into it?
Totally. I feel like non-musician or non-musical person would be blown away if they witnessed Scrim cook up a beat in the same way that any non-chef would be amazed at Gordon Ramsay, you know, making a badass meal from scratch.
So you're actually there witnessing, producing every instrumental that goes into his albums.
Sometimes I witnessed a few, but his process is he does it by himself. Most of the time he records himself. He's a really good engineer. He's a really good mixer. He recorded and mixed all of those songs before Stop Staring at the Shadows.
Oh, interesting.
Their whole catalog. He recorded and mixed that.
So you kind of just touched up on all of it to finalize the process?
Sort of. And it was a slow process, you know, because he was so used to doing everything himself and, you know, he was used to his sound. And it really took me a while to like figure out his sound.
Yeah. I feel like it's a very niche sound that shadow rap genre has developed. Did you have to like research a lot before working with Scrim and Ruby of what kind of sound they were going for in past mixtapes?
I did. And
Okay.
a lot of trial and error. You know, I wasn't nailing mixes right when we first started. A lot of the times, you know, I wasn't getting it, you know. I was like a very technical mixer, you know. I wanted everything to sound pristine, and you know, I wanted the high end to be right. Um, but sometimes you got to throw some of that stuff out the window to get a sound.
Was there ever a time where maybe Scrim was just like, this shit just isn't right, dude? Like, did he ever like just blatantly just tell you that?
Oh, you know, he's a sweet guy. Like he wouldn't say it indirectly, but I could just feel it because I was competing with his mixes. When I first started out, I was getting really frustrated because I was like, man, how am I supposed to compete with like the best producer in the world, you know, or the best mixer for that style? So it took a long time.
That's really cool that he has like that much trust and appreciation of the craft that you've learned to develop over your lifetime.
What I did was I just brought something a little different to the table. He figured out if he left the mixing to me, he could use all his creativity to just churn out as many beats in his songs as possible. Like instead of recording and mixing a beat, taking him a few days, he could just record it and then go right on to the next beat.
That's really cool. That's really, really cool. I mean, just, you know, me and Daniel have been fans of the Suicide Boys since like 2016, I think, is when we first started listening to them. You know, from like a fan standpoint, you know, having researched their music a little bit, where do you think this stands like in their catalog? Like it's an insane catalog, like so many different styles and everything. Where do you rank this, like personally?
It's something new. A lot of their older sort of music, you know, a lot of people, that's what they fell in love with, and that's what they want to keep hearing. But, you know, as they said, they already made it. Now he's trying to just keep, you know, pushing the envelope and just always trying to find something different. So I think it doesn't really compare to any of the older stuff because it's new. I'd say it's more modern sounding.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's some auto tune on some of those songs that's coming out, but he does on a few of the tunes go hard and rap hard. You know, with a project like this, he's not really considering the audience. He's just, you know, trying to do what he likes.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask you next is like, how much is that on his head when he's recording and making a new album? Is like, you know, they said before is like, you know, our old stuff is this and we want to do this. Like, you know, he really just doesn't care that much about like how people are going to perceive it.
He does in a way, you know, it's hard for me to speak on, you know, something like that, but from his new music, you can tell that he is trying to push it and make it something different. You know, he's trying to give, you know, his fans something new.
Any major differences in the process of developing both Stop Staring at the Shadows and A Man Rose from the Dead? Is there any like differences in the creation of the two of those albums?
Yeah, you know, Stop Staring at the Shadows was Suicide Boys. So creatively, there's two of them. A lot of the process was the same way. What happened with Stop Staring at the Shadows was a few of the songs that we were working on for his solo album ended up being absorbed into that one.
Take us back to like the timeline. 2018, you met Scrim. They go on this Grade A tour. A year later, he hits you up, does a walkthrough of your studio, kind of gets to know you a little bit, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
What period in time does Ruby enter the picture?
He came in right after they got back from tour. A lot of it comes into like the question of like Scott's sobriety at the time, or lack of it. I never recorded up until this point like any of Ruby, just Scott. I did mix the vocals on some of the songs for Stop Staring at the Shadows. Right when Scott and I started working is when he went off to rehab.
What can you say of like the changes that he's made in his life that you've seen?
Man, so much for the better. Just, you know, he was scared that, you know, he lost it. It just proves the opposite. You know, he made 70 songs over that time period.
Jesus.
And, you know, and he picked through those to make his solo. His creativity just went through the roof. His voice, it wasn't tore up from lots of performing and screaming. so he was able to be more melodic.
How do you feel about your experiences as like an engineer? How has it like evolved, and like where do you want to go in the future?
Um, as far as an engineer, I'd love to keep, doing what I'm doing with them because it's a lot of fun. But as far as like, being an artist myself, I'd love to uh, make loops for beats. I play guitar and I coach singers and stuff. So I'd love to work with, some female vocalists or some bands in the future, or maybe even produce records.
Yeah, that's crazy. So you do vocals, you play guitar, you do drums. What else do you play?
Bass guitar and a little bit of keyboard.
Damn, so you're a one-man band, bro.
I've been playing for a long time.
Do you have any like plans of eventually like creating hip hop sounds of your own?
I'm not sure. I'd love to make, I'd love to play guitar on beats, do some 808 drums, but I never really saw myself as a beat maker or a singer. So I sort of pushed myself to, try and help other people with their projects.
When it comes to this album, how happy are you that this is done and that people are going to finally hear it? You've been working on this for a year. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, it's been a long time, I'm really happy that it's coming out. I can finally have a reference for my work. It's nice to like feel some validation after putting in a lot of hard work. After all the doubts and insecurities that you have of whether you're actually good at what you do, it's nice to have like something tangible. You did that sort of thing.
Do you have a favorite song right now on the album?
Ooh, I do. I'd probably say it's Feel It Too. And I'll tell you why, because that was a song that was made right after he got home. He set up a little studio in his condo, and it just sort of encapsulated his feelings of having to leave home and whatever relationships he was in at the time, the thought of leaving them to go to recovery. It sort of has all those emotions in that song.
Oh wow.
That's really crazy, man. We're really excited for the project. We were just doing like some research online, and there's like buzz on the Reddits and the forums that there's some secret features. Can you speak on anything? I know everything's top secret, but this will be held confidential until after the album comes out, just so you know.
Yeah, okay. Well, since it's going to be out after, if you're looking at the song titles and you don't see any features on there, then I think it's pretty safe to assume that there's not any on there.
Oh really?
Wow.
All Scrim.
Yeah.
Wow.
Damn. Yeah, because I was thinking, I mean, it's like the back of an album. You'd assume that they'd put it on there.
How many times do you think that you've actually listened to this album? Like, if you could guess.
I'd say each song on the album I've probably listened to 100 times.
You find yourself like singing it to yourself?
Oh yeah, I know every word of every song.
That's hella cool.
Some, it's like some songs will just, they're really catchy, and they'll stick in your head, and like some lyrics from some songs will pop into my head one day and I'll be singing another song the other day.
That's awesome. But yeah, I think I was reading on your Instagram or your website, a lot of the message behind the album is about the highs and lows of Scrim's recovery process, the drugs and alcohol. How prevalent is that message throughout the entire thing? Is it just sprinkled in from like song to song? Is it a consistent message?
The themes of the album are pretty consistent, but it does jump, the feeling of it, because going through recovery, you have lots of emotions. 1 minute you're content with it, the next you want to rip somebody's head off. So it sort of encapsulates those feelings.
Wow. Yeah, it's definitely something that we've been looking forward to. Obviously for you, like just a great body of work to put on your resume, put up on the shelf. Can you like get us any details of stuff that you're working on in the meanwhile that other projects, maybe like G59 related or not?
Currently, just mixing some stuff for like my old clients from back home.
Did you get a couple calls after they found out you were working with the Suicide Boys?
Oh yeah, well, they all knew since 2018.
Oh yeah.
It was hard for me to keep it a secret, but I'm still doing some stuff for them because when I left, I left a big hole in the scene. I had dozens of clients. I was recording up to 4 or 5 people every day. So when I left, a lot of people started recording themselves from home, but they could never get that same sound. I can't forget about, my friends back home, and I enjoy mixing their music still, so.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, that's like the good part about working remotely is that they can really just send you something and, you can fix it up for them. Like how often do you go back to New Orleans, by the way?
My family's still there, and Scott lives there, so I'll go back every couple months or so. But I love living out here in LA, man. It's a change of pace.
Yeah, we were like both wondering what the transition was like, because like coming from New Orleans, going all the way to California and LA, I'm sure the environments were like polar opposite from each other.
Yeah, they're different. The people are a lot different too. There is a thing to be said about Southern hospitality, and it's just it's a slower way of living down there. It takes some getting used to, but we like it.
What was the main motivation? Was it, business related, just lifestyle?
My studio was in my parents' pool house. My parents sort of fell in hard times and we had to sell the house. So that was like the main motivator. I figured if I, was losing my house and the studio, that now would be the perfect time to just take the plunge and move out to LA.
Oh, wow. I'm sorry to hear, man.
It's all good. During that time, though, I was still recording all the Scrim stuff. So that was a big blessing that I was still able to work through all that.
Did your family come with you to LA?
No, they found another place like a few blocks away from my old house. So
yeah, it's a trip.
I know I get to go by and see the new family that's living in there.
Dang, that's so weird.
Just give them a wave and then walk a couple blocks over.
Yeah, so it's like you guys have no idea what we did in there. I wonder if like my clients are still driving up to the house going, "Where's Sambo?"
Damn, totally forgetting that you like moved somewhere else.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. So how far away was like your old place to Scrim's current residence right now?
It was like one town over.
I forget what I was watching, but I think it was it may have been Ramirez doing an interview where he was talking about going out to New Orleans and like working with Scrim and just talking about like the traveling through Louisiana and just going through like the swamps. And he's like, I don't even know where the fuck we were, bro. And just like the image painted in like my head after that of Louisiana is just like swamps and towns and swamps and towns. Can you like talk a little bit about your hometown just so we kind of get a gist of it?
Yeah, Louisiana is mostly small towns besides New Orleans, and there are suburbs of New Orleans, which is like your average suburbia, but the landscape it's very green. It's beautiful. There's rivers, there's swamps. We have cypress trees. New Orleans is a very beautiful city, but it has a lot of issues. Louisiana in general, it's more about the culture, of the party culture and the food. It was a great place to grow up.
Well, cool, man. We pretty much got everything that we had researched from you. Thank you again for your time. Really appreciate you setting out the time for us. It means a lot. Congratulations on the project. We're really, really excited to hear it. Probably have a little bit of a party next week when it comes out.
Hell yeah, guys.
I'm sure you will too.
Hell yeah.
All right, man. We appreciate you.
Thanks, man.
You're the best, bro. Appreciate
Thank you guys. See y'all.
Thank you.
See you soon.